What up, guys? Today I wanted to talk about filtration. Filtration in the tank. A lot of people ask certain things like, what filtration is best for my tank? What can I get that filters my water the best? Which one should I use? Should I use a sump? Should I use a sponge filter? Should I use canisters, hang-on bags, things like that? And I kind of wanted to cover this just because I use all I use all these types of filters in my tanks. Let me give you a quick example. So here you see is a 125 gallon for my giant gourami. Uh, he's a red-tailed giant gourami, very young, and there's a silver dollar, Raphael cat. Just a really big grow out for the gourami to see how big he'll get. And for this specific tank, I use two different types of filters. I use a traditional sponge filter and also use canister filters. So you have two. There's a Cascade 1000 and a Sun. I used to have two Fluvals in here to power this filter or power this tank, but those two filters actually crapped out on me, and then I just picked up these two right here. They're very cheap. The Cascade 1000 and the Sun. They both retail for I think less than 100. I think the Cascade's only like $70. But I'm not really talking about brands right here. We're just talking about the different types of filtration. I run two canisters on this 125, and here are all the inlets and outlets and things like that. The reason why we chose to run canister filters on this specific tank is because it's actually in a living room setting. Canister filters are typically very quiet and efficient, and way more efficient than hang-on bags, in the sense that it can house more mechanical filtration and biological filtration and things like that. But in this scenario, the two canister filters only have biomedia in there. And then on top of the biomedia, there's a thin layer of filter floss that I would just replace every time I water change. I'll just take it apart and replace that. But in there is the white one. The Sun has Biomax, and then the canister or the Cascade has this generic ceramic rings and stuff. I don't really ball out on expensive biomedia just because every year, every time a company brings out a new different type of biomedia or whatever, they always say that, oh, it's the best, but ceramic media is just ceramic media. So, to me at least, I don't know about you guys, but I like to use Biomax, and the other one is just basically filled with some generic ceramic rings. Although it is proven that some biomedias out there are more porous than others and way more effective, if you're going to be doing your monthly routine or whatever routine on your canister filters, and you're going to clean them and rinse them out with tank water, it's still the same effectiveness. But I do see where the market comes from, where you're buying things like Biohouse, or you're buying things like these super porous medias. For me personally, I just don't really see the point of buying super expensive media if you're just doing your maintenance. The reason why I also run this sponge filter in this tank is because that filter floss that's in those two canister filters, they're just served to kind of keep the biomedia clean, whereas this one is basically kind of providing a more effective mechanical filtration for this tank. And I'm already running an air stone in here anyways. You might as well attach it to a sponge filter and let it do its thing. So the reason why I'm running the canister filter on this 125 and not like hang-on bags and a sump is because the canister filter is really quiet. And another reason why I'm running it is because when this guy gets pretty big, red-tailed gouramis usually get around 18 to 19 inches. It's the true giant gouramis that get huge. Nevertheless, once this guy gets big, he's going to be really, really strong. And I wanted to run an inline heater. I could run an inline heater with a sump, but again, this is in a living room setting, and I wanted it to be as quiet as possible. I know that there's different ways to make a sump more quiet. You can put it into like your stand. You can have different inlets and outlets to make the bubble noises and gurgling noises go away. But through my experience, canister filters are really, really, really quiet. As you can see, the air stone is more loud than the canister itself. You can barely hear it, and I'm having two here. So, yeah, it's how quiet a canister filter is, and I really wanted to run this inline heater. And canister filters can actually fit a good amount of biomedia into them. Let me take you to more of my smaller tanks. This is a 10-gallon with just a betta in it, and it houses a lot of my plants. I have a Java fern and all different types of moss and anubias, and then I have a catfish in there. But this is just like a betta tank. I'm running a sponge filter in the back, and that's it. Just that sponge filter back there. The reason why I like running sponge filter on smaller tanks, especially with the betta or like fish that don't really require super high flow, is because canisters, hang-on backs, they will stir up all kinds of plants that you have, especially in a small tank. And with the sponge filter, the direction of the air is just going up, so I don't have to worry about like flow and things, and my betta can be in here fine. Don't have to stress about fighting currents and stuff like that. So yeah, here's another one of the tanks that I have that's a little bit on the smaller side. Just like the betta tank, I utilize two sponge filters. I have a sponge filter there and a sponge filter over there. I threw in a little bit of extra flair into it. I added a K1 bottle, and also I have a hang-on back for more biological media. And this is the ceramic rings that I was talking about, the cheaper ones. See how they're so cheap that they're kind of stuck together. And then this is Biomax. I just had a bunch of extra and I just kind of threw it in there. And then this is Eheim stuff, and this is also Eheim stuff. Yeah, I just filled this hang-on back with a bunch of extra stuff that I've had. I want to talk about this tank because I have an angel in here. I have a purple wolf and some other oddball fish in here. I have a whole bunch of plants. And the reason why I'm running a hang-on back in this tank is because with sponge filters, you get a lot of dead spots in the tank, right? You'll have like, especially if it's a little bigger than, like a 20-gallon or something, you'll have some dead spots. And I wanted to run the hang-on back in the back middle of the tank. With the placement of the hang-on back being in the middle of the tank, the flow pushes down and then kind of flows this way and then flows that way. And therefore, it just kind of goes like this, like a mustache. Flows down and then up towards the two filters, and then it's just a big cycle. So you'll see there's no dead spots. See, there's no there's a little bit over here. Well, actually, I think that's snails. Yeah, but yeah, in this tank I use a little bit of both with the sponge filters and the hang-on back. See, there's always uses for different types of filtration, and then depending on your needs, one is not better than the other. So enough with the 40-gallon and the tanks inside the house. I wanted to show you my personal favorite tank, just because. So yeah, this is my cold water tank. Eventually I'm gonna have some ranchus in here, like those big chubby goldfish. As for filtration for this tank, it's very, very simple. I just have a sponge filter. Let's see. Have a sponge filter, and that's it. No heater, nothing. And then I also use different type of filtration for this tank. I'm trying to utilize as much plants as possible. So you have different plants going into the tank, and therefore trying to I'm trying to have like a garden looking theme, but at the same time I have nutrient sucking plants in here, right? I have pothos growing. I have this weird plant that dips into the water, and then its roots start from here and it goes into the water. I don't know if that helps, but I mean, it's obviously getting nutrients from the water. Eventually this tank or this tub will be covered with pothos, and then hopefully I would have a more natural looking tank. But nevertheless, I'm only running a sponge filter in here, and the inhabitants are doing good. I don't know if you can see them, but whenever I come over here, they get scared and they hide. So this is the tank that I focus on the most. It is 100 and something gallon tank that's in my garage, as you can see. And then I only run one type of filter in here, but it's also has a bunch of attachments onto it. The tank is drilled with a bulkhead, and it leads to this filtration right here. Traditionally, this is what a sump is, right? A sump is basically a separate tank or a container filled with water that you use to house your media and your filtration and stuff like that. But this sump is very different compared to traditional sumps, just because I've added a bunch of extra stuff to it. So I like to use sumps out here because out here I don't have to worry about noise, I don't have to worry about any types of issues with leaks and things like that. Knock on some wood right here, you know what I'm saying? Drips, splashing of water, things like that. Just because it's in the garage, I don't have to worry about these types of issues that could occur. Let me start off with what I have here. The sump is a 20-gallon long from like Petco, and the main source of media is K1. It's made popular by Pond Guru and Joey from King of DIY. I've had a video about me building the sump, which I'll link on the top right corner, or you'll see like a little icon thing pop up like right now. So yeah, the main focus of this tank would be the K1 that's in here. This is a moving bed type of filter, where the media is moving consistently, knocking into each other, cleaning each other. It's a very maintenance-free system. I don't have to clean this media; it will never clog. And the only thing that would clog is that pump right there. The pump that pumps back into the tank. But the media itself will never clog, and it's just a self-cleaning system. Another aspect to this tank is I have this bucket that I drilled a bunch of holes in, and I use it to hold my extra ceramic rings for whenever I want to set up the tank and the pump. I also added these plants here just because I wanted to see if it would help with the nitrates and things like that. And I also have this right here. So these two contraptions are those Marina breeder box things. They're usually air driven or driven by a power head. In my case, the one on the right is driven by a power head, which sucks water into here, goes into this filter flask, and gets pushed back out of the container. And then this is my water polishing container. I use it for just polishing the water and make sure everything's clear. And it's very, very, very easy to keep up with the maintenance. All I gotta do is pull this out, replace it every, I don't know, water change or whatever, and that's it. That's how I keep basically my mechanical filtration for this tank up kept. Now the breeder box on the right, it houses my plants. I also have a light bulb there. So the light bulb acts as the sun. It shines up on the plants, and then the plants photosynthesize or whatever, and then hopefully it sucks out the nitrates that build up in the tank. I have two different types of plants. I have golden pothos, and I have regular pothos, and then I have this weird little house plant that I just put in there, and it just grew. In here, you're gonna see a bunch of detritus hanging out on the bottom. But I've added some cherry red shrimp, and I'm gonna go get a bamboo shrimp soon, and I'm gonna put it into here, and then hopefully it'll clear up the bottom and things like that. I've used pothos in the past. It grew really big and eventually crawled up my wall, which is why I have this metal bracket here. Before I had the pothos growing up this wall, and I had the roots go into the tank. But with the theme that I'm going for this tank, I can't even see the glare. The theme I'm going for this tank is I want it to be as bare as possible. And the only thing that's in there right now is that heater. I was trying to figure out how to get that heater and put it into the sump, but it's too long to fit in here, so I just kind of left it in there. Maybe eventually I'll get an inline heater and I'll put it right here, just like the tank that's inside. And yeah, that's what it's basically made of. The K1 detoxifies the ammonia, turns into the nitrite. Nitrite eventually gets converted to nitrate, and then the nitrate gets sucked up by these plants right here, and then hopefully it lessens the need for water changes. But I do water changes all the time anyways. All my tanks have like a 2-week water change regimen and things like that. So, if you were to ask me which filtration is the best, honestly couldn't tell you. I personally like, Canister just because of the ease of finding the canister. Like, you can buy a whole kit and it's easy to put together compared to a sump where you have to actually build it and drill holes and mess with overflow, mess with like gallons per hour, things like that. If I personally had a choice, I would go with 2 FX5s for my tank in the garage, but 2 FX5s I can make a really nice sump. So there's that opportunity cost. Like, would I rather pay a little extra money and get like really good canister filters, or will I just implement that into a sump? To answer the question in the shortest way possible, is one type of filtration better than the other? No. Some people are canister guys, some people are sump guys, some people are like me, where I use all different types of filtration: hang-on bags, sponge, canisters, sump. It just depends on your needs and depends on if it's working for you. So I guess kind of take this video with a grain of salt, and hopefully we have more filtration videos coming in the future. See ya.